But once you start with back before the financial collapse, in the period of the big accounting scandals that so many corporations ran into trouble on, and in particular, maybe most famously, Enron and Arthur Andersen, but the approach that the government took to those cases and then how that played out.
Yeah, so corporate prosecutions have gone through an unbelievable metamorphosis over the last 2 decades. It used to be that no one talked about how to prosecute a company. The idea was, well, what's the point really? You couldn't really find them very much before the sentencing guidelines took effect for corporations in the early 90s. And it was really, really unusual to even bother prosecuting a company. It just wasn't a priority. That changed in the 90s, and you started to see here and there some corporate prosecutions. A company can be prosecuted for the act of any of its employees if they commit a crime.
Effectively, like the company is another person.
It's like a master-servant relationship in a way, and it comes from master-servant law. The corporation is the master; it is responsible for what its agents do. So prosecutors have had this power to go after corporations for more than 100 years, and there are incredibly broad criminal statutes which they could use in federal courts to target companies, but they didn't start to do it until really after Enron. And I think the concern was, well, look, if you convict a company, you could put it out of business. There are so many suspension and debarment charter rules where a felony convict can't do business with public companies. You can't do accounting for public companies if you have a felony conviction. Now, a lot of those rules were designed for people like you and me, right? A doctor or a lawyer or an accountant might get debarred if they're a criminal. Well, the rules apply to corporations too, and the concern was you would literally have a corporate death penalty if you convicted companies, and that's what they said. Prosecutors then used the corporate death penalty. They used it against Arthur Andersen, and that's the story with which I open the book, where you have document destruction on a scale that few had seen before.